What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Gordy Bonker Show. Lots going on in the hobby. I'm excited to jump into today's interview with a very good personal friend of mine in the hobby, Mr. Jeff Hopkins. Jeff and I have known each other for a couple years, being two of, I guess, the more younger guys in the vintage sports card world. I met Jeff at a show a couple years ago, and ever since have been keeping in touch with him, trading back, learning a little bit about the vintage card market. So I'm excited to get into the interview today. There's just a couple things I wanted to talk about to you guys in the audience, just some updates from me since last week as well. Love the feedback that I got from episode 1, and I'll be sure to be answering your guys' emails for more questions and stuff that you want to hear on the show. Is really exciting, and we're in the early days of this, so I think there will be some changes that happen throughout the show as we kind of learn and grow it and adopt it, but really excited to be able to bring this to you guys. One of the things that I really wanted to continue doing was the card of the week, talking about any big cards that I have potentially bought, sold, or spoken about, especially from the investment landscape of things. The high-end vintage sports card market is continuing to chug higher. I'll be spending a lot of time talking about it from the landscape of the asset class that it's been turning into. And one of the cards that I was able to help broker this past week, and my card of the week, is a 1955 Roberto Clemente PSA 8. This is an excellent card. It's an all-time Hall of Fame card, and again is an example of what I believe to be one of the most important and significant rookie cards of all time. Clemente establishes himself in the highest echelon category of all-time players from the 1950s. You of course have Mickey Mantle, you have Hank Aaron, you have Willie Mays, you've got Jackie Robinson, and you've got Roberto Clemente. The Clemente 8 recently made some headway in PSA 9 condition. Heritage publicly shared that they had brokered a private deal on the card for well over $1 million. It was $1,175,000 was the sale price on it. And it showed at that time, right around the national, the strength that the high-end vintage sports card market was jumping into. That card is an absolute iconic image of the hobby. The 55 Clemente is shared with 55 Koufax as the other big rookie in that set. And we'll give a shout out to Harmon Killebrew as well. He deserves a little bit of love. He's a rookie card, of course, in 1955. But really, the 55 Clemente, to me, is established as one of the best cards. I was super excited to be able to get this to a client this week. I'm really bullish on the sports card market, and I just wrote a piece on the Bonkers Cards Club on bonkerscards.substack.com. That's my weekly newsletter that I publish all of my writing and insight. And this week, I took a deeper dive into some of the high-end sports card sales, including 2 other cards that hit all-time highs in their sales of other vintage iconic Hall of Famers, and actually broke down in a little bit more detail as to what I think is behind this rally in the super high-end category of vintage sports cards. So if you want to read about that, check that out. Again, go to bonkerscards.substack.com, subscribe there, and join the Bonkers Cards Club to get exclusive access to all of my writing, as well as discounts on my set breaks, invites to our monthly vintage card collector meeting, and free giveaways and more. So definitely go and check that out. So just wanted to plug that. That is our card of the week, the 55 Roberto Clemente PSA 8. And yeah, we're going to get into our interview with Jeff. Last thing I guess I'll say before we go into the interview with Jeff as well, it is Ryder Cup week. As I mentioned, I'm a huge golf fan. I'm rocking my Westchester Country Club polo right now. I have absolutely been in an absolute golf tear lately. I can't get enough of it. And I'm just going to say, go USA. Let's get the win this weekend at Bethpage Black, and let's go get it done. So without that, I have all that to say. Let's go check out Jeff Hopkins, my interview, and I will see you guys next week, hopefully with the boys at the Ryder Cup winning the trophy. I'll see you guys later. All right, guys, I'd like to welcome in a very special guest, my first guest on the Gordy Bonker Show, my friend Jeff Hopkins from Waterfront Sports Cards. Jeff and I have known each other for a couple of years now. Jeff, I was reminiscing on how you and I actually first met and our first national together in some of those shows. So I'm excited to dive into that. But Jeff, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining me.
Man, I appreciate you having me on. I feel like it's a privilege to be on your podcast and be the first guest. So
absolutely, man. Welcome aboard. I was saying, I was thinking about, I guess the first time we really met in person was not at the National. If you recall the show, it was Culture Collision down in Atlanta. Do you remember that?
I do remember. I do remember. And we were just like, wait, you're Jeff and you're Gordy? I'm like we've talked a ton on Facebook. So it was really
Yeah.
good to put a face to the name. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Remind me to bring up Facebook and kind of the environment right now on selling on Facebook, because I think a lot has evolved since then, and we'll want to get your take on that later. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember meeting at the Culture Collision show, but I also remember that was when Jeff Wilson was opening Sports Cards HQ, and I remember going to his trade night. This was only last year, like January of 2024, right? I think it was not this year, it was the year before that.
Yeah.
And I remember this trade night had no vintage. And I was like, God, this is such a bust. And I had my eyes on the floor. And then I finally see vintage, and it's all cards on the floor. And I look up and I see you sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, I know this guy. And we ended up talking the whole night. And then flash forward probably 5 months, you and I bunk up at an Airbnb with Tyler Tarver from Tarver's Cards and your buddy, Andy. And the four of us, most of us who had never met each other yet, all basically stay in this Airbnb together for a week in Cleveland. And I remember being like, I don't really know these guys all that well at the time, but they seem like good dudes. Let's see how it goes. And I had a blast. I loved hanging out with you guys. And I remember the memory too of you coming back from that trade night like crazy late. Like you went all night long trading. I remember
I
a 51
know.
Bowman Mantle, possibly
I
a
know.
33 Gaudy. You remember that night?
Yeah, is that I came back one night with a 86 Fleer Jordan SGC 8. And it was just like, and then I also, yeah, is it like at one night during trade night, I sold 2 Ruths for like 18 grand or something like that. So it was like, it was a really good trade night. So
Yeah. You thrive at the trade night. I remember you telling me that. I myself haven't had a lot of success at trade nights. We'll have to talk about that in a little bit, but I want to set the tone early here and give background to my audience on kind of your origin story into the hobby. And one of the reasons that I thought it would be good to bring you on as my first guest was I shared my story going full time into the hobby on my first episode. And I got a lot of feedback of people asking me, hey, Gordy, I want to do the same thing. And some of the stuff I could answer immediately, and that feeling isn't too far away. But I think your story in terms of going full time in the hobby will be a lot more relatable to people because you just made this decision like fresh. Like you're new to being all in the hobby by yourself. So
yeah.
I want to kind of give you the floor to introduce yourself and kind of let's start with your college background, your corporate background, and I'll interject here and there, and then we can kind of go into you making the move to go full time in sports cards.
Yeah. So I'm also a young buck like you are, 28 years old, and I went to Auburn University, got a degree in finance, and really just, I mean, both my parents are in the finance world, so I mean, I just was like, that's probably a great decision, right? And so got my degree, really found out pretty quickly that I didn't want to do finance, but I'm thrown into this degree and really just knew that I wanted to do some kind of sales job. Graduating in 2019, I moved on to a number of different companies doing sales and customer service kind of account management roles, but really just knew that at some point I really wanted to work for myself. I really wanted to own my own business, whether it was it really, I had no clue that sports cards were going to come back into my life. My dad and I.
Yeah, when did you first start collecting?
Yeah, so my dad and I, we started collecting when I was probably the beginning of somewhere in elementary school, if not middle school. So, I mean, over 15 years ago. I mean, it was a long time ago. And my dad came to me and he said, hey, I really want to collect the cards that I sold when I was in college. You know the whole story that everybody has, like, wanted some extra beer money. And so he sold his collection when he was in college. And so So we bought some 1971 cards, 1970 cards. I mean, it was sort of just lots that we're buying on eBay, but soon it turned into a monster.
Yeah. So you
And
started just doing it with your dad, like
yeah.
buying, selling, flipping, stuff like
Well,
that.
really at first we were just collecting.
Yeah.
And so my dad and I, we are big into sets. We love collecting sets, upgrading sets. That's where it all started. And I feel like any set collector will tell you that they honestly probably understand the cards the most, because you're like, that high number from 1961 sucks. It's so expensive. It's so hard to get centered, and so that's what really has helped me succeed in really what I do, is just because I have so much knowledge. And my dad and I really put together these sets. Some of them we bought complete, but some of them we bought just large lots. And
Sure.
then,
So
yeah,
I'll get more into kind of your strategy in the hobby and your expertise with it, but I wanted to kind of continue to go down this path that we were on. So you had kind of woven your way through corporate America, had the traditional sales roles. I know your last role was at Bassmaster. You were doing sales for them, correct?
yeah, yeah,
And you had said you were thinking about always in the back of your head, maybe wanting to pursue your own business full time. So
yeah.
talk to me through about this most recent decision for you to leave Bassmaster and what that was like and deciding to
Yeah.
do this full time.
I mean, I have two passions in this world. I have a passion for fishing and I have a passion for cards. And, having an opportunity for Worker Bass was awesome. And I loved it. I loved my customers. I had a really good time. Just think I butted heads with my manager a little bit more than I had thought. But, really just it came down to one day, one of our directors of business development, he called me into his office and he said, "Hey, close the door." I said, "Okay, all right, let's talk business, right?" And he said, "I just don't feel like you really enjoy it. Like, you love what you do, you talk the talk, right? But you don't really enjoy what you're doing." And I said, "No, I don't." And he's like, "I know that you're looking around at other jobs, and I just want to like let you know that I'm here to help you if there's any kind of connections I know." And I said, "I appreciate that, but I really do want to own my own business and work for myself, never work for somebody else." And he sat back and he laughed and he said, "Jeff, everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to work for themselves and make their own decisions, but that's just simply not how it's going to work out. You just got married. You're 28 years old. Like, I don't see you owning your own business like in the short term." Well, that conversation with him like sparked that fire that I needed. You know what I mean? Is
Yeah.
it like that was the fire that I needed to really convince myself, hey, like, he's really doubting me, and like, I want to prove him wrong. I want to do what I've always wanted to do. And, my wife, she supports me. She was telling me for 6 months prior, "Hey, just go ahead and quit. You're all good. Like, we'll be fine." But, yeah, it was,
Well, credit to you, man. That's a huge decision, and I relate a lot to that as well. I think having like a really supportive partner is massively important when anybody is thinking about making a career shift, especially when it's into entrepreneurship, which does require a larger appetite for risk. And I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to do what you did. So congratulate you on that, and it's going to have its ups and downs for sure. But the thing is that you have in the back of your head is that you're following your own insight and you're chasing your own passion, which a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do. I think you and I, like you said, we are fortunate also in the time period of life we're younger. We can take on a lot more risk than somebody that might have a family and responsibilities and things that they just are a little bit too afraid of risking, putting in the way of if the business doesn't work out. So I think it's a twofold thing. You're forward looking enough and had the support, and you're taking that chance on yourself. So credit to you, because I think there's a lot of people in the audience that are watching this that probably have a similar desire to get to. So I want to ask you now, because when was that conversation? Probably 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, so it was probably a month before the national, and then right
Okay.
after the national, I I remember getting on that plane going to Chicago, and I had no cell service or anything like that. It's just me just sitting on the plane, and I said, I really think that I can do this.
Yeah, man. I was
And
talking to you at the national. I could see it.
yeah, and it truly after the national, like just I really made my decision after that was what I was going to do.
Cool. And I wanted to kind of jump further off of that. Now that it's been 2-3 months, what has been the biggest adjustment for you not working in a corporate job versus being your own boss? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think that there's really I'm still busy. I truly still work 8 hours a day, if not more than that, right? I think that the biggest adjustment sometimes is, or I think that it has so far it's been um, other people have opinions on like what is my occupation now. Like
Mm,
I've had a number of friends who asked me, "Oh, what are you doing now?" And I said, I'm finally doing what I've always wanted to do, and I'm doing cards." And they're like, "Oh, you can't make a living doing that." And I said, "I mean, I'll show you. I'll simply show you. I'll figure it out, and we will work. I'll work towards that goal." So yeah, it's been a struggle, definitely. A lot of my clients from when I worked at Bassmaster, they reach out and they're like, "So, where'd you end up? Like, you're coming back to the fishing industry, right?" And I'm like, I don't think I am. I don't think I
yeah.
am, but I mean, who knows?
Yeah. You tapped into something else that I certainly have felt and still feel. I'm a lot better with it now because I'm a couple years into it. But those few months that you're in now, I remember not having it down when people ask me what I did for work. And, it happens a lot on the golf course when I get paired with new people. They're like, "So Gordy, like, what do you do for work?" And it's like, well, I have a social media content brand that focuses on vintage sports cards and memorabilia, and I buy, sell, and trade high-end vintage sports cards. And now it rolls off the tongue, and there's a lot more authority behind
That
that when I
sounded
say it.
good.
But I think in the beginning, there's almost, I remember almost like a sheepishness where I was like, well, you see, like, I buy and sell sports cards. Like now it's like, no, this is a real thing, And there's been a lot of confidence and growth in that time period. And I remember too, like the decision to do something that is a lot more obscure and out there, being like a little bit afraid of what my peers might think of me. Like especially like I don't know, my parents had pretty traditional jobs, trying to explain to them what I wanted to do was hard, and then even more so like just hanging out with my friends who all also have traditional jobs. None of my friends have their own businesses or even do social media content for that matter. So when I'm out here posting TikToks 3 years ago, just hammering it or whatever, and it's very different than what my friends are accustomed to doing. It was a little awkward and uncomfortable, and I definitely remember, venting to Amanda about just how like awkward I felt about talking about what I did for work because I was super passionate about it, and sometimes it felt weird. But I would tell you that it does get a little better as you get further along, and you stop really, to be honest, you stop giving a shit what people think of you, especially once you get cooking with this. But
Yeah.
it's hard, man. And I think anybody that does this transition and listens to this, or maybe gets on the other side of it, will have a similar experience. So
Yeah.
it is a little therapeutic to hear you say that because I remember having those same trials.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
um,
all you have to do is really put your mind to it. And truly, I mean, like
so
this industry, like, as you know, I mean, it's all about what you put into it is what you will get out of it.
100%. There's a 100% correlation between the time and energy that you put in versus what you get out. Wanted to ask you, I guess, what your day looks like right now. Do you have a structure to your day yet? What does that look like?
Usually, I mean, I get up the same time that my wife does, and I mean, it's just as if I'm going to work. I mean, I mean, I'm not leaving the house. That is weird. But I mean, um, there's a lot of sets that I'm working on, at the moment. So I mean, it's me going through, picking out exactly what I need to upgrade. Um, maybe touching, a few posts or whatever on Facebook or going on Instagram, but following up on messages.
Yeah.
My day is really, there's no structure to it, and I love it because now, if my wife says, "Hey, let's go to lunch," like I truly can go to lunch,
Yeah.
and we can have a 2 hour lunch together. So I really have no structure as of right now.
Yeah. I think, one of the things that's interesting about the industry is that sometimes you wake up, you have no idea what you're going to get into that day. Like there's been several days in the last couple weeks where, I'm on the phone with a customer that I didn't think I would be on the phone with, or a potential card gets presented to me that I am really surprised is out there. And sometimes, priority setting is everything. You could be working on something that's a little bit lower priority, like just figuring out what type of inventory you want or upgrading your set. When a good deal presents itself or an important conversation happens, it redirects your priorities instantly. So I think one of the key skills that people need to have, and this I definitely learned in recruitment and being in New York City, working with hedge funds, private equity, like stuff moves fast, and you have to know where the money is and where to prioritize your time, who you prioritize your time with. Because realistically, if you can't figure that out, you're going to continuously miss out on opportunities. So
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a skill set to pick up on. And I agree. Sometimes the day is just totally unstructured. You don't know where it's going to go. But let's talk a little bit about your strategy as a card salesman. What you do when you're selling cards, you focus a lot on sets. Like, talk to me about what you've seen the most success with in terms of buying and selling. What does that look like?
So I think that my strategy has changed a little bit ever since I decided to do this full time. So I always talk about like outlets, like guys who go to card shows, that might be their only outlet to sell cards. And I think that that really does limit them. So, um, really it's diversifying my outlets on where I can sell cards. And so, ever since, I saw that you partnered up with Greg Morris, I was just like, I was in the background, just like, dude, that makes so much sense. Like, I love their service. I literally have thousands of cards ready to go. Like, they're going to be awesome. And really, it's that strategy of selling sets, selling high end singles, but also utilizing other different platforms. So obviously, like,
Yeah.
Greg Morris has to have their fee or whatever, but it gives you the opportunity to focus in on other things at the same time. So that's really how my strategy has changed, but that's really how I
How
do it.
much of what you're selling is raw versus graded cards?
I do sell a lot of raw, and
You sell a lot more raw than me, for
yeah,
sure.
but I submit to Greg Morris a lot, and like Greg Morris, hands down, gets the best prices for really, really sharp and well centered cards.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that's what I look for. Is that sometimes I'll go through the sets that I buy and I'll say this set is VG or VGEX, but then there's this like mint comment. I mean, you've been there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, in some ways, I haven't. I really don't focus on raw cards the way that you do.
yeah,
I think a larger part of my business is graded. I mean, it is 90, I'd say 90 to 95% of it is graded.
yeah,
I'm going through selling a 58 set right now to Greg Morris. I'm going to see how that result ends up, and I think it's going to do really well. But no, there's a lot to learn from how you pick apart cards and get the most value out of it.
yeah.
I think that's super interesting, and you're using different avenues on where to sell, because I think that's a skill set that people need to evolve and learn, is like, what is this card and where can I get the best return for this
Yeah.
card? Now, you're talking about buying cards, where whatever sources you might be. I know you're on Facebook quite a bit. You're maybe on Marketplace, eBay, going to card shows. People are coming to you with deals. Like, it comes from a lot of different ways. There's not one place to source cards or inventory.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you can't use one specific outlet for how you sell cards either. And you and I are similar in that we don't really set up at shows to sell. I go to shows to buy and do content, but I don't really enjoy the experience of sitting behind a table at the show. So yeah, I guess talk to me about how your experience has been. Let's talk about it a little bit with Facebook. So are you buying a lot on Facebook or selling a lot? What are you doing more of, buying or selling?
So I do a lot of selling on Facebook. I mean, I always try to create at least 1 or 2 posts a week, but my inventory just moves quick. I believe there's a lot of dealers out there that have prices that are 120% comps and all that stuff, and you're like, man, you got the same cards each week, right?
Right.
So I really am. I focus in on making sure that my cards are priced competitively, and that I truly, like, each week I have new inventory. So I'll make 2-3 posts a week. I'll throw my inventory on Instagram just because I do have a handful of people that just have Instagram.
Give it the plug. Where can they follow you on Instagram?
Waterfront Sports Cards. So that's waterfront_sports_cards.
Yep. So you're making Facebook posts and you're having success with selling there. Obviously, pricing strategy, I agree with you completely on. I think the velocity of selling cards is a lot more important than the margin that you can receive on sitting on a card. Those guys who are priced super high might actually end up selling the card at that price, but it might take them literally 10 times as long as it takes for you to sell it.
Yep.
And by the time they sell it, you've bought and sold 10 other cards and made way more in total net profit, which ultimately at the end of the day is probably what matters more to you than just seeing a higher margin percentage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly, I think of it like this. I provide a service. Is that I want people to come to me and say, I can buy a $5,000 card from Jeff and feel comfortable the whole way through, from when I pay for the card up until I get the card in the mail. And then I also feel like I'm also a service when it comes to, like, Gordy, I'm sure that you can relate to this, but I mean, like, at the end of the month, I get some messages from people I've never talked to or people I've talked to, and they say, "Hey Jeff, I'm behind on my credit card bills. Can you buy some cards for me?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." I mean, is that so?
You're there as a source of liquidity.
Yeah, it's I provide a service on both sides. I feel like I try to make sure if anybody ever feels uncomfortable at any time, I give them my phone number. Communication is key.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think communication is something that really quickly differentiates you in the hobby as an industry. I think something that you and I both benefited from was having corporate sales background. Selling as a skill set is not an easy thing to learn, and it takes a lot of trial and error. And I spent most of my career in sales and heard no and rejection a lot. I'm super comfortable with rejection. I've heard no so many times. It doesn't really affect me the way that it could affect other people who haven't done sales before. And I do see that sometimes with dealers who might not have a traditional sales background. They don't have the soft skills in communication or relationship building or negotiation, because obviously those are all day-to-day integral things to have. And trying to also not make it a personal thing either. You and I are good friends. We've done deals together. I've negotiated deals with you when you have cards I'm trying to buy, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think there are certain people though that can't do that, and I think that's fine, but that's a skill you're going to have to work on if you want to see like long-lasting success in the hobby overall.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, I guess, anything that you find particularly interesting happening in the hobby right now. What's on your mind that you find is an interesting trend that you're seeing, either at shows or just talking with some of your other buddies? Anything come to mind with a trend?
It's booming, man. It is like, I come from a different industry that's very different than sports cards. And
Yeah.
I come in and like I'm not saying that the fishing industry is super lucrative or anything like that, but it's very different. I come into the sports card, side of the equation, and it's just like there's always something that somebody's trying to create or enhance, and there's always buyers. There's lots and lots of new and exciting opportunities. I mean, it really is. It's a booming market, and at least on the vintage side, I mean, is like I just don't see this going down ever, or at least
Yeah.
not like in the near future. Because I mean, Jackie Robinson isn't swinging the bat anymore. You know what I mean? Is that like
Yeah.
so? That's what
There's
I always say.
Yeah, no, I love how you're comparing it into an industry in terms of seeing the innovation. I've been writing a lot about this. Not only is there more media and content circulating around the sports cards industry, but you're also seeing entrepreneurs like planting roots and building legitimate companies and businesses around the sports card ecosystem. It's not necessarily just talking about like this card is moving up in value, but you're seeing more auction houses, more technology companies, more apps, more card shows. You're seeing more ways that there is commerce happening. You're looking at it from a lens, like I've said this, I'll continue to say it. I hope I get him on my show one day. I'm a big fan of Michael Rubin. I love what he's doing to build out the industry. He's making it kind of like the tip of the spear as a fan. The ultimate fan is the collector, and thinking about sports cards as an overall experience. That is such a large addressable market. When you look at the growth in just sports and the sport category and people going to games and fantasy sports and sports gambling, it's all this one big massive trade. And we're seeing like a legitimate industry being built in front of our eyes under a category, even with the stuff that we like, this older stuff where it's just old pieces of cardboard. There's this stack of technology and entrepreneurship and all of this happening, and it's a really exciting time to be in it. And you and I happen to stumble into this when we were just collectors of it and we liked it, and now you're seeing it kind of all happen in front of you and you're like, wow, this is a really exciting time. So I agree with you completely on the innovation standpoint. And then you also mentioned there's a lot of buyers, and that really goes into liquidity, talking about the amount of capital that's moving around the system. I am publishing a piece tomorrow. By the time this comes out, it'll be out there for the Bonkers Cards Club, about where the bull market is right now in vintage sports cards is in the high end category.
Absolutely.
And a huge driving force of that market is because of the amount of cash that's sitting on the sidelines. There's a graphic that I'll share with the team to put up here talking about the amount of cash sitting in money market accounts right now is at an all-time high. There's over $7 trillion sitting in money market funds that's not being invested into US stocks, that's just sitting on the sidelines. And that amount of cash is finding its way into alternative assets like sports cards, like crypto, all these other things. But I do really believe that when you look at the high-end sports card category, that is a major beneficiary of the amount of capital that's flowing in the system. So people that weren't necessarily collectors, maybe they're just investors. They just want to get into the space, and they have the capital to do so.
Yep.
And we're seeing it in real time, So I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. And it's going to be interesting to watch. And to your point, these guys, their market, Jackie ain't swinging the bat. These guys are proven legends. They're culturally relevant. They are historically significant. It's just not something that I see changing.
That's a great point. And Gordy, Tommy Larson. Tommy he told me, he said, there's two things that you can invest in that will never go down. He said Ruth and Mantle.
Yeah, no, those names have not gone down whatsoever. I've written both of those player markets I've done pieces on, and the 52 Mantle, even in low grade, has outperformed the S&P over the last 10 years. And same thing with the Babe Ruth sports card and memorabilia market. I invest into Babe Ruth stuff. This is my Babe Ruth cut auto. You could buy his autograph, you could buy his cards, any of it. It's like gold. It continuously goes up. And I agree with your boy Tommy there. It's wild. So I wanted to get back to kind of talking about your, experience now as an entrepreneur, doing sports cards full time. Give me some advice to somebody who's thinking about doing it. What's one good piece of advice that you would give to somebody maybe that wants to do sports cards as a full-time occupation?
I would tell them that it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen within a month. It doesn't happen. I mean, just like any other business, is that it's something that you will stumble down that path, but you got to make it all the way down that path, and you will continue to always, level up, I guess. Like as you do it more and more, and you're in the space even longer. And there's plenty of things that I used to do, a few years ago that I'm like, oh my gosh, like why didn't I do that?
Like
And
what? Give me an example of something that you don't do anymore that you learned from.
well, as then I really focused in on, a few years ago, I focused in on, cards that were like in between 50 and $200. And I was like, wow, I made 20 bucks off this card. Like, isn't that amazing? And I even, I've got a buddy who, I'm not going to call him out, but I got a buddy who's trying to get over that hump, and he keeps on, buying, $10 to $50 raw cards or graded cards. And I keep on telling him, like, man, like, take this step forward and buy a $500 card. Go ahead and just go and take that step forward. Look for eye appeal, look for centering, look for like buy a goat. And I felt so good this past weekend as he sent me a 1959 Bob Gibson SGC4. And I was like,
Nice.
bingo. That was
There you go. That's the type of card you want. So you're talking about in the beginning, you were spending a lot of time on cards that weren't yielding a lot of profit for you.
yeah,
Obviously, though, in the beginning, that's what you want to do. You
yeah,
you don't want to be jumping into cards that are over your shoes in terms of A, what you can afford, but B, it's not a huge deal if you learn from a mistake and buy a card that had a crease that you didn't see and you only lost 40 bucks instead of 4,000 bucks. That $4,000 loss is a lot more
yeah,
painful, and in the beginning could derail you months and months of getting even back to even on something. So, I think it's good for people to start with something small and see
yeah.
the buying, the selling process, and get comfortable with it. And then, of course, like you want to continue to challenge yourself and move up the value chain because of course, also buying and selling higher dollar cards will yield more profit too.
Buying cards is just like any old business. Is that networking literally will keep you alive. I mean, it's like truly who you know. It's not what you know, and probably you and I are selling the same card for the same price. It's just the connections that we have, the relationships that we built. That's what sort of that's what sort of keeps the money going. So
Yeah.
I emphasize on treating people right. If they get the card and they see a crease that they didn't see, I I say, come on, like send it back to me. I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for
Yep.
doing what's right, and treating people how I would want to be treated.
I totally agree, man. I remember in the last year I had a customer, I had bought him a Michael Jordan star card. It wasn't the star rookie, but it was one of those other star cards. He's a big basketball guy. Packed it up, sent it to him, and he shows it to me, and it was damaged in the mail. I forget the issue regarding insurance, but I wasn't getting the coverage on the insurance. So I think I want to say the net loss was gonna be like $500. I ate it, paid it. I told him to keep the card. I found him another card. My net loss on that card was like way more than what the value was of it. But the fact that I treated him well, focused on the relationship and the network and the value of him as a customer, as a client, he was unhappy with it. We got it resolved. And then shortly after, he bought several really large cards that helped basically offset the loss that I had incurred on the previous card. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with a way to differentiate yourself in the market in the sports card industry is treating people right, communicating very well, and like you're saying, networking. Because I do think a lot of the people that are currently in the game don't have a lot of those skills. At least I don't interact with it and see it sometimes. So
Yeah.
it helps a lot when you can do that type of stuff. So I think that's great advice and something to think about. So I want to talk about looking ahead a little bit. Got a couple questions here before we wrap up.
Okay.
When you went to do this, did you set any goals for yourself? Short-term, long-term goals? Talk to me on that.
I think short-term goals is that I really wanted to feel fulfilled and I wanted to feel happy. Like I just, wanted to feel like myself. You know what I mean? Is that like I've had jobs in the past where I've had that they were great. I loved them. I just like never felt like there was opportunities to advance. And I really felt like this, moving from the corporate life to truly running full speed ahead is I just wanted to be, feel that fulfillment. And, yeah, I mean, I love the taste, man. I'm here for good. I feel like it's been really good to me. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I love that you're thinking about like what makes you happy, because really, that's the end goal in all of what people are doing for work, right? Like, is what am I going to do when I wake up every morning and I'm really happy? There's a very viral Gary Vee clip, another guy who's been a big role model of mine through content and hope to one day get him on the show, is he talks about like when you wake up in the morning and you're excited about what you do for work, like you won. Like that is the goal, not to have FU money or anything. It's to enjoy what you do for work and make it work for your lifestyle. So
Yeah.
that's great, man. All right. I want to talk about two hobby, I guess, questions for you. What has been the biggest or the best find that you've had in the wild? Is there a certain card that you found in the wild or collection where you were just jazzed, like you were calling your wife, like, I need to tell somebody, this is insane that I got this? Like, what's your best one story in terms of a collection or a
Yeah.
card that you found?
So I was on Facebook one day just scrolling through and I saw a 1950 Bowman set. And I said,
Now, is this on Marketplace or in a group?
it was in a group.
Okay.
And I really was like, it was like in just like a small group that like nobody commented on it. And I just was like, I looked at the guy and it was like his first post and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I mean, obviously I'm interested, but like, I'm like looking at these cards and I'm like, they just don't look right. Like they look way too sharp, way too bright, like everything.
Yeah.
And I negotiated a deal with him and I said, hey, I'm cool with your price. Price is not a big deal. I just want to make sure that they're legit. And so I like scheduled like to have a buddy literally go pick up the set from this guy and then ship it to me. Well, ended up is that the guy was just like, you know what, I'll just ship it to you. Just don't even get your buddy involved. Well, I'll just ship it to you. And if you have any issues, I'll just refund you. Well, I get the set in the mail and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is the nicest 1950 Bowmans that I've ever seen. Graded the Jackie at the National, came back a 5. Like
Nice.
it's raw in my hands. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then Drew at Greg Morris, I was texting him about this set, and he was like, "Well, just come show it to me at the National, or whatever." So I came over and I gave it to him, and he just was like, "This is simply like, yeah, this is really impressive, Jeff." And I just was like, "Man, I'm telling you, it's killer." And to get like the key for Greg Morris is like that near mint or better. When you get to that status, it's like, there's no telling what it'll go for. A common will go for $250. And sure enough, like that was the best find of the whole year, was finding that 50 Bowman set and then consigning it. Was it
this year?
Huh?
It was this year?
Yeah. Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about the profit or what you sold the stuff for, or anything like that? Whatever you feel comfortable with, just out of curiosity.
I 5X'd my money.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
that's certainly one to call home about, right?
yeah, yeah. And I told my wife about it, and she just was like, you know, all right, sounds good. But then after you get those, that direct deposit from Greg Morris, I was like, all right, Reese, now take a look. She was like, wait, what? So yeah,
That's awesome.
it was cool. It was like the most insane set. You never know what you're gonna find. Like there's still
And
things.
good on you for following up with it. It was a post that people could have commented on, and no one seemed to want it. So
Yeah,
sometimes you got to follow through with it. So
yeah.
that's pretty cool, man. The other one I wanted to ask you was on the collector side. What is a holy grail item that you want for your PC? Not something that like, I know. I guess I'll leave it at that. What is an item that you strive to one day get to buy and say, this is for me, I'm keeping it for my personal collection?
Well, I would say, I don't know. My dad and I, we're always trying to build a new set, and we've been just tossing around the idea lately of like building a 33 Gaudi set.
Okay.
And like he told me, he said if we do start that, like we need to start with the roots. Like we gotta get them knocked out first. So I think that's definitely like something that's on the horizon. We've just talked about it, and I think it's just a thought in our mind. But I think that's definitely like something that like many other collectors, that 33 Gaudi set is like that's that is the set. I mean, the 52
That's
top
your
set
set,
is
yeah.
definitely something
Yeah.
hard to accomplish. Thankfully, we have accomplished that, but the Gaudi set is definitely that's what I'm looking
Nice,
for.
man. So maybe I'll add to the chase of that set. The grail would be the Nap Lajoie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would that include the Nap Lajoie if you were to complete that set?
If I'm lucky enough to find one, um, you know, man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, for those that are listening that might not be familiar with the 1933 Gaudi Nap Lajoie card, the story goes in 1933, Gaudi puts out their set and leaves out one specific card. Nap Lajoie, who was a great Hall of Famer, he was, they literally named his team the Cleveland Naps after him. But he is famously not in the set that initially releases in 1933. Gaudi left them purposely left them out. It's card number 106, and there is no card number 106. So it wasn't until 1934 that they released the 33 Gaudi Nap Lajoie from people writing letters in asking, where is this card? We can't find it. Gaudi produces it, sends it out in the mail. Today, there's, I think, less than 100 copies that are known to exist. It's a super difficult card to find. And I share the story partly because I do have a client that is looking for that card right now. So if you have one and you want to sell one, hit me up, Bonkers Cards on Instagram, TikTok, on email, bonkerscards@gmail.com. But that is an amazing, amazing set, Jeff. So good luck with that with your dad.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I am going to wrap it up here, man. I want to say thank you so much for joining me as my first guest on the Gordy Bonker Show. And I want to say, man, I'm so proud of you. And it is not easy to take this leap of faith and go pursue your passion. And I can't wait to have you back on soon, hear more stories about your adventures out on the show circuit. I'm hoping to see you. When's the next show? When's the next show we're going to go to? You going to go to Dallas?
Gonna go to Dallas. So
Yeah.
Dallas is always good, and I'll see you there.
I will see you at the Dallas Card Show. Jeff, let the audience know, where can they find you at, my
Yeah,
man?
you can find me Jeff Hopkins on Facebook or Waterfront Sports Cards on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. Thank you again to Jeff for joining the show. Tune in next week for another edition of the Gordy Bonker Show. And be sure to be following me on all of my social media channels at Bonkers Cards on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe to the newsletter, bonkerscards.substack.com, and join the Bonkers Cards Club to get insights and access into all of my writing about the vintage sports card market, discounts on my set breaks, giveaways, and more. Guys, that is the episode. We will see you guys next week.